Hello and welcome. This is the writer's commentary for the introduction to my novel. The title of the novel is My Costumes by Michael Helvati. It's available on Amazon right now. So, in this video, I'm going to read the introduction, but I will stop and explain what certain things mean, why I made certain choices, and if you stay until the end, after I read the entire introduction, I'm going to show you some other things that I've done. So I have a rough draft of what became the introduction. I have the original first draft of the novel, which does not have the introduction. Okay, so here's the introduction. Buses in Korea are like football players, linebackers breaking through a never ending opposing line, turning corners with reckless abandon, shoving their way through traffic, and backing down other vehicles. They whip across multiple lanes of traffic, and from the rightmost lane, they blast through the red light like an end zone. Wearing big, brilliant numbers, each runs its own route down the field. Yellow 11 runs tight patterns, dropping people in their neighborhoods. Green 88 zigs and zags down the field, connecting towns and villages. And red 1004 goes deep. Every play is a Hail Mary into Seoul. So this paragraph, I wanted to have a really long simile, basically, where it's an entire paragraph, the entire paragraph, comparing buses to football players. Uh, I'm not the biggest football fan, but it just made sense. Uh, the only thing I would really say about this is, like here, the buses are usually have different colors. So a yellow bus, it has a shorter route. It usually stays in a very small area. The green buses, they, have a slightly longer route. They connect towns and villages, as I said. There's a bus near my house that goes. There's an island to the west of me, and it goes to sort of a big market that's about 5 minutes drive into the island, and then it goes through most of my city, I believe, and I think it ends right around Seoul. So it kind of just covers the entire city. It goes a little bit outside my city. And then the red buses, they go pretty far usually. I think they might be a little they have different chairs, maybe bigger chairs, more comfortable. It's almost like an airplane seat, maybe. Some of them have curtains that you can close because people want to sleep. The other thing I was going to say about this is, when I came to Korea, I had to walk everywhere, or I had to take public transportation like buses. And while it is very convenient, the bus drivers don't, some of them can be really good. I think the ones with shorter routes, they have more downtime, possibly. Uh, they know the people riding the bus, they see the same people every day, especially if you go out to the countryside. But some of the other buses, the greens, the reds, they're there's more pressure on them, I think. so they don't always drive nicely, and I still see it all the time, and it still drives me crazy. Okay. In the now of writing, I'm hunched over a notebook on Green 88, loving my Korean driver for his aggressive pedal work. He turns the wheel like a ship captain cresting waves at sea, battling a squall. Everyone is silent, respectful, like worshippers at church, while I watch the action outside the bus with stunned, awed appreciation. So many close calls, everything blurring by outside. My pen is also a blur, scribbling these exact thoughts in the summer of 2006. So this is an interesting paragraph because I introduced this idea, the now of writing, because writing isn't something that happens at one specific time. There's this moment where I'm writing it. When I first wrote this part, the now of writing, I was on a bus. But then you go home and you're editing things on your computer. And I really like that idea of placing the reader in the moment of the writing, the original moment, the now of writing. And I also like the juxtaposition. I hate the buses, but I love the buses. I think that's something that's really important about this novel, something I wanted to introduce in the introduction. Um, Korea is a land of juxtapositions. I every day I see new modern houses with solar panels and carefully manicured lawns next to really old, decrepit houses. And you see it everywhere. You can go to Seoul and you'll see this, new modern building, and it's squeezed in between these older buildings. Um, you see it across generations. You still have people who grew up during the Korean War. There's some, but there's a lot of people who grew up right after that. They grew up living in poverty, basically. And they've seen so many changes in the country. So there's a lot of juxtaposition. I'm using a lot of similes, like a ship captain, like worshippers at church. I love similes. It's a little puzzle. It's fun to figure out, oh, what feels just right. Even if it's slightly cliche, even if it's not the most original simile, I don't feel like every simile has to be an original simile. Uh, like a ship captain. Well, it works. It places the reader in a specific frame of mind. Everyone is silent, respectful, like worshippers at church. To me, that's a simple simile. And it's kind of true. People don't really make noise on the bus. Now things get tricky. A sentence later, a few months later, I shove pen and notebook into a frayed blue backpack and tumble out of the bus, crossing a street in the winter, enjoying my feet beneath me. I hate the bus. So I was thinking about this today because I knew I was going to make this video. This this is kind of confusing. We have this idea, the now of writing. I'm on a bus, and then there's this idea that a sentence later is a few months later. And again, I kind of want you to be confused, which some readers don't like that. I understand. But it's this idea that this sentence, I didn't write it until months later. And I could have taken my time and I could have explained it in great detail, but honestly, I don't want to. I don't I think it's better if I don't take great pains to explain what I mean by that. Uh, I'm trying to prepare you because this is not going to be a typical novel in a lot of ways. And there will be things that are jarring. There will be things that are confusing. I'm trying to do things that other writers might not do, and I want you to be ready for that. I'm also kind of creating what it's like for you when you go to a new country, a bit of culture shock. The writing is a little jarring. That's how it is when you go to a new country. So, and again, we have this juxtaposition. I hate the bus. I love the bus. I hate the bus. No crosswalks are safe. For the bus, my crosswalk is a finish line, a starting line. It wants a head start, pushes me off my safe crosswalk and into the street as it creeps forward, almost runs me down while screeching to a halt. I'm so tiny there. The bus has giant shining letters, symbols that tell strange stories about origins and destinations. But my deciphering is slow, and the bus is fast. Traveling in Korea is fraught with frustration. Uh, the rules have changed. There was a new law a few years ago that when the crosswalk is active, when there's a light telling you you can cross, that technically by law cars are required to stop and wait for that light to end. I believe even if no one's crossing, but I could be wrong. In practice, I see cars and buses go. They go no matter what. If they see someone crossing and they think they can safely turn, they still turn. But I do see people who they wait. They wait until that crosswalk light is completely finished. And everyone behind them is honking. They don't like it. They don't want people to wait. So things are changing, but it's slow. It's a slow thing. I think new drivers know the rules. I think older drivers don't want to change. They don't care. If they're not going to get in trouble, then they're just going to do what they've always done. And I like, it's a tiny little bit of alliteration, but I really like traveling in Korea is fraught with frustration. I mean, that's true anywhere, but imagine you first come, you don't know the language, you don't know, you can't read it, you don't know these places, you don't know what they mean. I've been here almost 20 years at this point, and I still am nervous when I ride a new bus to a new place. As stressful as the buses can be, the cars are worse. Like the Korean people themselves, their cars are usually dressed in black and they're small. Despite their size, or because of it, they shove through traffic. They take turns at breakneck speeds, shift lanes without warning, and ignore any and all road signs. There's no slowing down for pedestrians unless there's no other choice. There's very little personal space in Korea. Everything is small, narrow, crowded. I can deal with the crowds of people pushing me, cutting in front of me, stepping on my toes. I cannot tolerate cars doing the same. Sometimes they get too close when I cross the street. Let's be honest. Most of the time they get too close. Bumpers halt and I can feel heat radiating off their hoods. Drivers swerve to avoid me and I pull back. I must watch out for my own body, toes and fingers, all the appendages, because they've done me the courtesy of swerving. To retaliate, I stare them down, swear at them. This is 100% true, and this has not changed. There was one time I was trying to cross a street, a crosswalk, and a car was parked, and they started to drive, and did not look for some reason as they were pulling away and hit me. They were rolling forward, but they literally hit me, and I just kind of fell on the hood of their car, and they just looked at me like, "Are you going to go away? Are you going to be a problem for me?" And I just shook my head and walked away. I wasn't hurt at all. But um, you know, this is something that's really true, and it's never really going to change. Korea is a very small country overall. There is very little personal space. That's a big cultural thing. In Korea, you will often sort of jostle against other people, and it's not a big deal. Um, People don't always move out of the way. I mean, even when you're shopping, it feels like bumper cars sometimes. If you really bump somebody, you should say I'm sorry. But um, it's interesting. As I'm reading this now, I actually don't like this part. Sometimes they get too close when I cross the street. Let's be honest. Most of the time they get too close. Um, it just seems redundant, I guess. It seems repetitive. It doesn't feel necessary. If I wrote this now, I probably would cut that. Um, Time folds like an origami crane. I'm swearing at myself. Two versions of me, divided by a year, face off in the street. One on foot, the other behind the wheel of an oversized white roller skate of a car. 25 years old, I'm about to start my first ever tutoring session. Oh, sorry. Nervous and rushed, I'm driving unfamiliar roads, cutting off other cars, and blaring my horn. My temper is like Korea's monsoon season, with storms every day, pelting anger that never lessens. Uh, yeah, I had a real problem with road rage when I was younger. I think a lot of men do. And it's aggravated by road rage of other people. Uh, Here, I really like this one. Time folds like an origami crane. I like this idea that I keep folding time in strange ways, and I'm making something. I'm making something interesting, and you have to wait and see how is all of this folding of time going to develop. What's it going to look like when I'm done? I like this idea again of this juxtaposition, this comparison. There are two versions of me divided by a year. So I hate the cars, but then I'm driving, and suddenly I hate the other cars. But I, although I don't say it here, I also, well, I don't say it explicitly. Um, there's the version of me on foot who hates the cars, and then there's me in the car. I hate the cars. Um, there's no adventure here. I fought against tutoring for years, turned parents down politely when they asked. Give me a crowded classroom where I can cavort or act the fool, and I become a performer upon a stage. But sit me in a cramped room for an hour with a single wide eyed student, and parents might see through my act. They might finally realize that I'm not the teacher I pretend to be. Uh, that's sort of the core of this novel, that I didn't study to be a teacher. Uh, I I feel like it's that imposter syndrome, which I didn't know about when I wrote this. I had never heard of that. I hear actors talk about that. They talk about, oh, I'm an imposter. I'm not who people think I am. I'm not this great actor. I'm not this cool person. I don't feel like I should be here. I kind of feel like that. I felt like that as a teacher. Now it's been almost 20 years. Experience takes that away. So I don't necessarily feel that way. Although I will say there are still moments where I think, what am I doing? Like, this is so strange. I I don't always feel like I'm actually a teacher. Um, Tutoring is a big thing. You can make a good amount of money. I think the best thing you can do is figure out, find a good series of books. It took me a really long time. but I have a really, really good series of books. It literally at the back tells you these are reading books, these are phonics books, these are our grammar books, and it tells you what sort of grade level, what English level you should be teaching them at. And having those, it's basically I have a plan for several years of teaching, from phonics all the way up to more advanced reading comprehension and grammar. I really like those books. I think they really guide students. That's the hardest thing, just finding things that work. Um, the parents are usually pretty nice. Um, yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. Now I'm okay with it. I there's other things I would rather be doing, like writing, but it's okay. Idling in traffic on my way home, daydreams overtake me. I'm a demigod charged with maintaining order on the roads. With unquestionable power and authority, I toss tailgating cars from my path, fill hesitant drivers with confidence to tap the accelerator a little harder. I actually wrote a short story about that. It wasn't an amazing short story, but it was fun to imagine that there was still a Greek pantheon of gods, and that I think Hermes was always in charge of transportation. And I like the idea that there would be a modern equivalent and would punish people for their bad driving, because I can't punish them for their bad driving, and it makes me crazy. A second later, I'm 36, going to teach Katie. Okay. So again, this is very jarring. Uh I'm 25 and then I'm 36, because again there's this idea that I started writing this novel when I was, I was 23 or 24, I think, when I started. And I, always did some work on it, put it aside, did more work, and then I didn't actually go back to it until I was 36. So there's this huge jump in time and age. And so now I'm going to teach Katie. Her brother, Peter, and I whittled away 4 years of private tutoring, discussing anime, the latest movies, every moment of every weekend, family vacations, and his latest Gundam kits. Our official relationship was teacher and student, but Peter was more akin to a childhood friend, so many of our interests overlapping despite the gap in years. Yep, he was a great student. I mean, we just talked most of the time. It was basically a speaking class, and that was really easy. Katie and I share less common interests, so I'm more of a trusted confidant, not the teacher I pretend to be. She's in her second year of middle school and will spend an entire hour's class detailing plans to marry her latest celebrity crush. In a year and a half, when she starts high school, we'll probably never see each other again. I'm dreading our final class, and I'll show you why. Okay, so um, stylistically, there's nothing really interesting happening here. Um, but I will say, as a teacher, the idea of the confidant, that's something I really try to emphasize with my students, especially in speaking classes. Uh, I refuse to be uncomfortable with any topic. Anything they want to talk about, I will freely talk about. Part of that's my personality. I just don't get embarrassed about those things. So if students now, okay, if adult students want to talk about profanity, let's say, we'll have a discussion. I'll teach it to them. And if I'm too shy, if I'm too conservative to talk about those things, uh, then they will feel uncomfortable asking about other topics. But if I can take something like that and break it down and show them, well, this is what this means, and here's all these meanings. And it turns into a really productive class. They're learning words they shouldn't use. They're learning that some words are worse than others. Okay. So, all right. So Katie and I were talking, and she says, I want to grow my leg hair. Katie announces, as I'm lowering myself into a white wooden chair from her dining room. She's wearing shorts, displaying her hairless teenage legs, still clinging to a bit of baby fat. Without a word, I meet her gaze, and she's smiling, fully aware that we're on the same wavelength, the years between us meaningless in this moment of silliness. Smiling even wider, her face as round and radiant as the summer sun outside, her eyes sparkle and then lower to her phone. Her legs shake as she taps Korean characters into the translator app. I want to grow my hair long and comb it, the phone's automated voice declares, only slightly drowned out by Katie's giggles. I mean, that's inherently funny. She literally told me she wants to grow leg hair and she wants to comb it. That's just, you have to appreciate little moments like that from students and children because they say ridiculous things. It's really fun. You want to comb your leg hair? Teaching English as a second language, conversations always require clarification. Simple ideas need to be examined under a microscope. That's actually something really important. I remember when I was learning how to drive, my driving instructor was telling us, you don't just grab the wheel and you're going to go in a straight line. You're always making these really slight course corrections. And after you've been driving for a long time, you don't even think about it. That's teaching. You're not just going to stand in front of a classroom and say everything you want to say and point to students and they answer questions. You're constantly course correcting, especially with young children. They're going to make noise. They're going to get out of their chairs. In a speaking class, someone might interrupt to ask a question, and there's opportunities there to follow a new thread of learning, a new thread of exploration. So don't be afraid of those things. Don't be so tied to your destination that you ignore the scenery. Instead of answering, Katie continues tapping Morse code into her phone. Yes, comes the answer from her phone. She knows how much I love this joke, supplying simple answers with her phone. And she's been running it into the ground over the past month. She knows how to say yes, but instead, she types it into her phone and makes the phone say yes. It's such a stupid little joke. So you want to grow your leg hair long so you can comb it? Every word I speak is slow, over enunciated. I'm probably doing that right now, speaking slow and over enunciating. I'm trying not to, but you just get so used to it. You get so used to speaking slow and over enunciating, making sure the students can see everything you're saying, understand everything. Yes, from the phone one more time, and a tiny smirk escapes my lips. When my hair is long, I can dye it, the phone offers. And like a toddler shaking his way through his first steps, I'm barely keeping it together. So it just keeps growing. I want to grow the leg hair. I want to comb it. I want to dye it. What color? I can't help but ask, loving every syllable of this moment. I don't know, maybe yellow or green? Katie speaks, forgetting to use her phone's translator here at the climax. I can get perm, she realizes, and it's finally too much. I mean, that's too much. It just keeps building. Oh, that was such a great moment. No, I sobbed between bouts of laughter, wiping a tear from my eye. I love that so much. It's too good. Um, this is a problem because um, I think I'm really good at building a rapport with students. I'm very silly. I'm a very relaxed teacher, and that makes them very comfortable talking to me, studying with me. But then when I want them to seriously focus on something, they don't want to. They can't distinguish Michael the teacher from Michael the silly person who just wants to have a good time chatting. That's always been a problem. That's part of what this book is about. Again, I'm sort of pretending to be a teacher. I don't really want to be a teacher. That's at the core of the novel. I think there's so much to unpack with that. Um, if you're watching this without having read the novel, you got to read the novel. You got to get through the first part because it really builds and builds and builds to um, what I really want. Uh, Anyways, Katie and her brother took the work out of tutoring. Driving to their apartment in an elephantine black van, I sing all the English words in the latest K-pop songs. Throw in a smattering of the meager Korean I can manage. Driving no longer feels like a chore. Reminds me instead of the excitement during my first 2 years in Korea, riding in taxis crowded with my coworkers and holding on to a triangular grip like a shackle swinging in a dungeon while boring through subway tunnels beside my wife. So again, we have this contrast because while I hate buses and hate all these different forms of transportation, they're very frustrating. Uh, I also really love that. I grew up in Indiana, basically uh, on the line of the city, Indianapolis, and then countryside. So Indianapolis isn't that big of a city to begin with. So to be on subways and riding buses, this was all new for me. New experiences, riding in taxis. Traveling in Korea is fraught with frustration. So reiterating, bringing back that earlier idea, but adventures wait patiently, like apricots ripening in sweltering summer heat. Some dangle low where they're easy to pluck, wearing hanbok to Gyeongbokgung Palace, snacking on street foods at Namdaemun Market, and wandering the shadowy halls of the Korean War Museum. Other adventures hide deep amongst shadowy branches, dappled with mere flecks of sunlight, entering a PC cafe, cooking Thanksgiving for Koreans, eating live squid, or filling your soul with laughter during a private lesson. Those are mine, hidden fruits I'm eager to share with you. Okay, so again, I really like this idea of a really long simile. We have adventures are fruit. Um, some dangle low. They're easy to find, right? And then other ones, you have to be more adventurous. I think most tourists go to Gyeongbokgung Palace. They wear hanbok, the traditional clothes. Um, Everyone likes street foods. Uh, the Korean War Museum, that's a really popular place. But I don't know that everyone who lives in Korea has been to a PC cafe. I've been quite often. I really like the PC cafes. I think it's really cool. I did cook Thanksgiving. It's in the novel. It did not turn out well. I ate live squid. That's in there. That's in the novel, right? And this idea, I'm calling back the Katie tutoring session here. Those are mine, hidden fruits I'm eager to share with you. One thing I will say here is apricots. I actually thought about this a lot. I really pondered what's the most sort of succulent fruit, and I thought Apricot. It's got this beautiful golden color. It's kind of fuzzy on the outside. When you bite into it, it's so sweet and juicy. Um, Other fruits just didn't feel right. They didn't feel, apples are so popular, but they're kind of hard. They're so hard and crunchy. I like the idea an apricot, when you bite into it, your mouth is flooded with juice. When you open the pages of this book, when you read it online, um, I'm flooding you with ideas and experiences. So even something simple like that, personally, I labored over that for a while. I mean, I really sat there and thought about it. I often go and look at pictures. Just do a quick Google search of like Asian fruits because I wanted it to be a Korean fruit. We have apricots here. Young and impetuous, immortal, everything is mine, mine to consume. I'm draining the entire world down into my soul, navigating it like traffic outside a bus. I see every scrap of ugliness, every ounce of beauty, and feel every particle as all the traffic rushes around outside. I write to make sense of it all. There's a lot packed into this. The idea that I'm young, I'm going to live forever. Uh, then I just really like this idea that I'm hungry. I'm hungry for life. And I'm sensitive to things. I see everything around me. I'm very sensitive to people's moods and the beauty around me. I try to notice small things and I write to make sense of it all. And then I offer it to you so that you can make that part of your experience. Okay. I don't know why I had that there. Okay, so this is the introduction, right? Now, originally, this was not the introduction. This was just a different chapter. Okay, I had, I had, I had all of this. It's quite small. Let's make it bigger. Maybe too big. We'll do 16, and let's do some spacing. 1.5. Okay. It feels safe inside that giant green shell. Nothing can penetrate it. Okay, this is about the same. It's a little different, right? He's a master. He's in a hurry. He's a giant. Don't distract him. My bus in Korea. Okay, so I had these ideas, and then I got this idea of the buses being like football players. Um, and then I have the cars. That's about the same. Bumpers. There's no comfort zone in Korea, so I changed that to like personal space. Um, I retaliate. I become a creature that always finds a. Yeah, so the original draft of this book was a lot angrier. It was very angry. I wrote this. I started writing most of it. I had finished college. I was teaching in Korea. Uh, I wrote most of the notes as things were happening. So the first 2 years of being here, I wrote most of this, and then revised it years later. So the first 2 years, I was 20. Jeez, what was I? I was 23 my first year here, and 24 my second year. Maybe 25, and um, very angry, very angry. I had gone to college for 4 years and then couldn't find a job, couldn't find a good job. I think George Bush Jr. had become president. There was a lot of problems during his presidency. There was a recession, a lot of problems. I was angry about politics and so many things in America. So I went to Korea and I took my anger with me. And then as I was showing this to people and getting feedback, they were concerned that it was too angry and that it was going to turn readers off. And so I made those changes. And I honestly, I regret some of them. I think that raw anger, I think it had a place. I think it had a place in the novel. I mean, there's this idea here. I become a power bent on destruction, a creature of swinging arms that always finds a window or door to slam with its fist. I had cars almost hit me, and then I would bang on their car, and then they would get pissed at me. They were threatening my life, it felt like. And me banging on their car, yeah, that's not right. But what can you do? I was such an angry young man. I didn't know what to do. Now, if someone had gotten out of their car, I probably would have run away. I'm not a fighter. I am a product of road rage. I was taught rules, asked to follow them, and for doing so, expect all those around me to follow the same set of rules. When they don't, they're a cheater. I'm suddenly a teacher for the entire world around me, surrounded by spoiled children who think their tired eyes, their large paycheck, their whiny kids, their pregnant wife, their barking dog, their hunger pains, their fancy car and suit make them in some way special and exempt from the rules. I loathe cheaters. There's no fun in cheating, no gain, no well-earned reward. And I'm all about the well-earned reward. So I rage. Give me a vehicle and I'll honk my horn, flip the bird, throw my best angry-eyed "what the fuck are you doing" look at the driver next to me. I'll slow down and trap people who are driving too fast, wave at them and smile to only further aggravate them. I flash my high beams, but I always follow the rules, and so goddamn it, you will too, or I'll fuck you up. So, very angry, very different. Uh, I never thought I would be a nonfiction writer. Oh, the dog is so loud. I'm sorry. It's not my dog. We have a guest. The guest is a dog. I don't know why she's barking. She might be barking at me. I hope it's not too loud. Um, so I think it's important to let you know that as an avid reader, I really connected with Catcher in the Rye. And I think there's a lot of stigma around Catcher in the Rye. Ooh, angry white young man. But I think that it's a classic for a reason. There is a lot of value in Catcher in the Rye just because it's been placed on this sort of pedestal. Uh, doesn't mean that there isn't still worth there, especially for disillusioned young men, regardless of their race. Um, but personally, I really connected with Catcher in the Rye. I had not read anything like that before when I read it. And then when I was in college, I was introduced to a heartbreaking work of staggering genius, which, if you've never read that, that's the number one inspiration for this novel that I wrote. The author, Dave Eggers, he really, really plays with structure. And I had never read anything like that. You have to read everything. As soon as you open the book, you have to read everything on every page because he hides all these little jokes in there. You know, he changes the structure of things. Maybe even the copyright page is different. Um, it's one of the books that I have here in Korea, and yeah, it's an amazing book, and it's kind of an angry young man, and I wanted to tap into some of that. The other thing is, I was saying before I talked about the dog, writing for me, I always wanted to be a fantasy writer. I wanted to write about monsters. I wanted to write about fantasy worlds. The rules are different. Uh, I like world building. I never planned to be a nonfiction writer, but I had stuff I needed to say. Uh, it was therapeutic for me. So even though this isn't in the final product, at the time, it was very therapeutic to write these things. I could imagine doing it, and it was better to imagine doing it than to actually do it. And that's what all of these words and symbols and pictures and cute little quotes and devices are here for. I'm reminding you of the rules, yelling them in your face. You ignore them all. You become too big, a green bus pushing your way through the world. And there's no one around to challenge you, to shout you down, to demean you, belittle you, throw you over their knee. Uh, we've all met people who I think they need to be thrown over someone's knee and spanked. I mean, can you imagine if there was some kind of power, some kind of deity that would not, instead of, oh, you're going to hell, they just scoop you up and spank you as if you were a child, not to hurt you, but just to shame you. It's not healthy, right? Studies have shown it's not healthy, but I don't know. I don't know. I would be an instrument for God's wrath if he chose to turn it upon you. I would allow him to fill me with lightning, plague, havoc, and ruin. He could make me his son, give me to the world, allow me the choice of dying for it, and I would turn it down. Would choose to live so that you might die, so that you might pass away and take all your ugliness with you. I would be a vigilante running through dark alleys, leaping chain link fences. I'd kick in your door, punch you in the throat, and smash your head against your clean countertop until you stop moving. My justice would be swift and absolute, and when anyone asks what right I have to judge, I will tell them that no one else is judging. There's a void to be filled, and I would fill it, except that I'm a scared, shy little white boy from an average middle class family in Indiana. I'm nothing. Um, a lot more anger, right? Very angry, very, very angry. Um, I think had I been born differently, had I had a different upraising, different education. I mean, if a lot of things had been different, I might be a completely different person, someone who would have a completely different set of values. And uh, there's nothing. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. And then here's again the contrast. I love contrast. I'm nothing. I'm everything. I'm every poet reborn, every author, every seer and sage and prophet. You think you know everything because you graduated from Harvard or Yale or Oxford, because you make a paycheck with four or more zeros in it. Four or more zeros? That's not a lot. Because you live in a penthouse, because you can sleep with any woman you want, because you are godlike in your ability to control people's lives through your advertising company, gas company, clothing lines, restaurants, movies, because you have a gun or several guns and once killed a man and think that makes you powerful, because you've lived a hard life, because you've read some books, because you're in charge of a town or city or state or country, because you were once a young boy who tripped over things and cried when he lost at games. But then you grew up and convinced yourself that you were no longer that clumsy boy who trips over things and cries when he loses at games. But you're wrong, because you're still that boy and always will be. Not me. I was born old. My soul is the funnel in the bottom of the bathtub when you pull out the plug, swirling and sucking all that water down through hidden pipes. I'm draining the entire world's water, swirling it and funneling it through my hidden pipes. And I see everything and feel everything as all that water rushes around inside me. You can't imagine what this is like, what it's like to see everything and feel everything, to look into God's face, go insane, and then slowly pull yourself back together. I know what's right and wrong. That doesn't make me wise. You know it too. The difference between us, the reason I'm wise, a modern day Sophocles, is because I choose to do what is right and call it right, and sometimes choose to do what is wrong and call it wrong. You choose wrong and call it right. So for you, there is no wrong. You think everything is right, but it's not. It's all wrong. Everything. Every little thing you do is wrong, and you don't deserve to be here anymore. I'm going to cross the wire, dig under the DMZ. I'll knock on Kim Jong il's door, ask him for some of his nuclear weapons. And I'll push all the buttons, every red button, and every missile will fly. Every purpose will be fulfilled, and when they crash, when they explode on your front lawn, I'll smile because then we can start over, can learn from our mistakes. I mean, I can't even, I I don't even want to read anymore. I mean, this is therapy. This was therapy. This was just unbridled anger and frustration. Um, and it's hard to connect to that person that I used to be. Uh, I think I I'm glad that I didn't keep this. I think it's good that it's gone, because I think it sends the wrong message. Um, um, but I don't know. There are young people out there who probably feel this way. I mean, I definitely felt this way at the time. I didn't actually want to murder anyone. I didn't want to wipe all life from the earth. I mean, it sounds like a manifesto. It sounds insane. But it was really just me trying to go to the darkest place that I could and exaggerating a lot. But it is kind of embarrassing to read. I mean, it sounds like a manifesto. And I think a lot of this was actually inspired by the final chapter of Dave Eggers' book, A Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Genius. I don't remember, obviously, the last chapter, what exactly it says, but he really builds to this um, very angry climax, and it just pierced me right to my soul. I just thought, oh my god, exactly, like that's how it feels to suddenly be thrust out into the world. And okay, you're an adult, go live your life, and you feel like people aren't all playing the same game. You know, that's kind of how it is. So very different, very, very different than the final draft. Now, the final thing, this was the original opening. Uh, I was going to call the book Height of a Mind, and it didn't feel right. Uh, that's something that it's based on a poem I wrote when I was in high school, I believe. And I always liked this idea of thoughts falling to paper from the height of a mind. So that's kind of my brand. My website is Height of a Mind. Everything I'm doing as a writer, I want that height of a mind sort of idea there. When I write my blogs, I end it from the height of a mind. So it's better as this sort of brand and not as a title. And I had quotes, and I took them out because I didn't want to. I took them out because I was publishing myself and I didn't want to deal with trying to get all the rights to print everything. It seemed like a big mess. But originally I had this quote from Tim O'Brien, The Things They Carried, amazing book if you've never read it. Um, Even if you're not interested in the Vietnam War, if you're a writer, a lot of this book is about writing. The thing about a story is that you dream it as you tell it, hoping that others might then dream along with you. And in this way, memory and imagination and language combine to make spirits in the head. There is the illusion of aliveness. Inside the body or beyond the body, there is something absolute and unchanging. I mean, that's a beautiful quote about writing. And then this is very simple. that only can we say which we have lived. They say to be a writer, you have to go out and live. And that's true, you do. But as a fantasy writer, I would argue, no, you can just make stuff up. It's okay. So originally, the book just started, chapter 1, goodbyes. And I had, of course, a quote from Catcher in the Rye. For me, this was a perfect quote for the beginning. What I was really hanging around for, I was trying to feel some kind of a goodbye. I mean, I've left schools and places I didn't even know I was leaving them. I hate that. I don't care if it's a sad goodbye or a bad goodbye. But when I leave a place, I like to know I'm leaving it. Uh, it felt like a perfect quote, and because of my love for Catcher in the Rye, I thought it fit nicely. So that was the original. This is a lot. This has been an hour of me talking about 2.5 pages of writing. If you sat here and listened to me for the whole hour, wow, I applaud you. I I love you. You're amazing. Um, Regardless, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that if you're a writer, that it gave you some ideas about your own writing. If you are a reader, someone who has read my book or wants to read my book or is currently reading my book, I hope that this is an interesting bit of insight that fleshes out the novel a little bit more. Um, this is something that usually authors go out and they meet people and people ask questions and then they talk. But I thought, YouTube seems like a good place for this sort of thing. All right. That's it. I hope you'll watch some other videos.